Welcome back. AOC faced backlash this week for her depiction of her experiences during the January the 6th Capitol riots. This wasn't a good week for Nancy Pelosi either, who's now facing growing calls to pay a fine that she herself imposed after she reportedly bypassed a metal detector in the Capitol. Joining me now to react to it all and much more, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Great to see you. So much I want to talk to you about. Let's just start with those two stories. Yeah. You really got into it with AOC. I don't want to necessarily rehash the whole thing. The thing that really interested me about it was her reaction to you being in a very sober, reasonable way, pointing out facts, was really extreme. And she just came back at you with this series of really aggressive tweets. What it said to me is that this is a person that just doesn't like being challenged.
Right. And honest to goodness, I mean, I originally started out kind of going after the media's depiction of her account of the whole thing. And then the very next day, I simply literally just tweeted one sentence that said there were not insurrectionists in the hallway and I was 2 doors down from her. And it was mass hysteria for like 2 days. And I've been living rent free, I guess, in her Twitter account all weekend as well. And so I just can't, I'm kind of mind boggled by the whole thing. Telling the truth gets you attacked in this country. I mean, that's not the American way.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was kind of weird. Let's move on to the Pelosi story. I mean, this is so typical, isn't it? Like, you know, say one thing, do another, rules for thee, not for me. What do you make of it?
Do as I say, not as I do. Typical politics in D.C. And I mean, as a matter of, clarity here, there's nothing constitutionally that can prohibit a seated member of Congress from entering the chamber of Congress to take a vote. And so what we're doing here is totally unconstitutional, and she won't even live by her own rules. It's not surprising, I guess, unfortunately.
I know. I mean, they'll never change her. She's just the worst example. I want to sort of get into the territory I was talking to Senator Blackburn about just now, which is looking ahead to the future. I know you've only just got there, but, there's always the next election. It's obviously frustrating for Republicans, to not have the power to actually do the things that you want to do.
And we hear about unity. We hear about unity and and people wanting to work together, but it's a one-way conversation right now. It's very difficult to have a two-way conversation when Democrats just want it their way and only their way.
And in terms of the Republican Party, feels to me like actually there's a lot of focus on the divisions right now. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to unify around. I think that if you look at what I describe as positive populism, what came out of the Trump years, that focus on workers and America first. There's a lot of policy items there that I think that, the vast majority of the party can get behind and focus on, and it's a winning message.
Right. If we can get past the division and the distractions, I've said earlier this week, I felt like I was in an episode of Jerry Springer. The American people, there's so much that we can do right now. We've got to get our kids back in school. We've got to get people back to work. We've got to get vaccinations in arms. I mean, there's so much work to be done to get us through the pandemic, to get our economy back, to get unemployment low again. There's so much work we have to be doing, but we're distracted by all this division and social media, and it's very frustrating because we're paid a good amount of money to do a job, and we need to be working.
Exactly. I mean, look, it's not going to be. We got the impeachment next week. That's not going to help. But do you think that once that's out of the way, you and your colleagues can get back to that kind of positive focus you're talking about?
We're going to have to. I mean, certainly if we want to win back the House in 2 years, and next week with the impeachment, the Senate literally can't do any other business. They can't take up any business while there's an impeachment trial going on. So we have to hit pause for the entire week next week, unfortunately. And then there are so many other opportunities for us to work together. For instance, an infrastructure package. I would love to see that in the next couple of months. I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. That's a great place for Democrats and Republicans to work together. But the question is, with all the money spent during COVID-19, is how are we going to pay for it? No one's really willing to talk about that. We can put a great package together, but how are we going to make cuts elsewhere to pay for it without raising taxes on the hardworking American people?